Good morning and welcome. This is the first day of VAFMA's annual Virginia Farmers Market Food Safety Summit. For those of you that don't know, I am Kim Hutchinson. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Farmers Market Association. The goal of this summit is to give farmers market managers and vendors the information that you need to know about food safety requirements in Virginia. We are extremely grateful to the Virginia Department of Health, the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, the Virginia Fire Marshal, and the Virginia Family Nutrition Program, as well as the Virginia Alcohol Beverage Control Authority for their partnership on this event. And also for their support of VAFMA and Virginia Farmers Markets. Without you, we would not be able to do the work that we do. Today we are recording each presenter, and we will share these recordings as well as the links to the resources that they share. These videos and slides will be posted in the next 2 weeks, and an email will go out when they are posted. We have shared all of the questions. We will share all of the questions that you submit. We will do our best to answer them all directly here. And if we have any follow-ups, we will provide that information to you. Please use the Q&A box to ask any additional questions. Today is the day to get your questions answered. We've got all of the folks here that are the direct authorities from these different agencies. So you will be hearing directly from them. So please drop your questions into Q&A and we will capture all of that and get those answers to you. If you are watching this as a recording instead of live, you can still get your proof of participation by taking the quiz we have available through Farmers Market University. Farmers Market University is the online platform that we recently launched. It currently hosts multiple trainings for farmers market managers, including Market Management 101 and 201. All of the recordings will be available there, as well as an automated quiz based on questions presented by our presenters. The quiz is only applicable to those that are taking the online class through Farmers Market University. Those of you that are participating live, do not take a quiz. You will receive your proof of participation from being here today. All the recordings, again, will be available, as well as all of the slide decks and the Q&A information. For those of you that are not familiar with the Virginia Farmers Market Association, we are a membership organization whose mission is to support farmers markets through education, networking, advocacy, and innovation that supports the growth and sustainability of farmers markets statewide. If you find our trainings and resources available, we encourage you to consider becoming a member or donating to VAFMA. There is more information on our website about that. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, please come on out and give us some support. For those of you that are not familiar, VAFMA is the one that had farmers markets. We had the law made during COVID to make farmers markets essential, so that during any state of emergency, farmers markets will have the ability to operate. So we do a lot for you. In addition to these types of trainings, we also advocate for you on a statewide level. So back to today, we are going to hear from the Virginia Department of Health, which is known as VDH here in the state, also the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. You'll hear us refer to this agency as VDACS. The first two presenters will be an overview of farmers market food safety requirements from VDH and VDACS. They will be followed by weights and measures, and then we will have produce safety today. And so I appreciate you being with us. We are going to go ahead and get started, and I would like to introduce Whitney Wright. He is the Environmental Health Coordinator in the Office of Environmental Health Services, the Division of Food and General Environmental Services, and Jessica Klemenczyk, the Food Safety Quality Assurance Coordinator in the Office of Environmental Health Services from the Virginia Department of Health. Whitney, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Kim, and it's a pleasure to be with everybody this morning. As a kid from Isle of Wight County that used to sell sweet corn and watermelons in the tailgate of my dad's truck, I have a deeply rooted respect for farmers markets, and really looking forward to sharing some of the information from the Virginia Department of Health today. And I think Jessica is going to get her slides up, and then I'll get started. Can you guys see the slides yet?
You're good to go.
Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Today we'll be providing an overview of the Virginia Department of Health's Permitting and Food Safety 101 at Virginia Farmers Markets. My name again is Whitney Wright, and I'm the Environmental Health Coordinator in the Office of Environmental Health Services, Food Safety Division. And presenting with me this morning is Jessica Klemensick, who is our Food Safety Quality Assurance Coordinator. And as Kim mentioned earlier, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. We have about 30 minutes of content that we're going to try to get to, so hopefully we'll cover most of the questions that you have, but we do have some time at the end that we've buffered to try to answer as many questions as we can today, and we will be on the full morning, so if there's other questions that pop up, please feel free to send those to us. We also have, and we'll point out today, we have a food safety inbox that anybody can email, and we can try to get your questions answered as quickly as possible. Next slide, Jess. So in the Health Department Food Safety Division, we have a way of speaking our own language and use several acronyms when discussing food safety. So on this slide, I provided a few of the more commonly used acronyms that you might hear today in the presentation, such as CFPM, which is a Certified Food Protection Manager, FDA, or Food and Drug Administration. LHD is their local health districts. We have 35 of those in Virginia. MOU is their Memorandum of Understanding that we'll mention. PIC, which is the person in charge. TCS Food, which is time, temperature control for safety food. TFE, which is temporary food establishment. VDACS, who you'll be hearing from next, is their Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And as Kim mentioned, VDH is what we go by here at the Virginia Department of Health. Next slide. We are often asked how you can tell the difference between a VDH vendor and a farm or non-VDH vendor at a farmer's market. One way to tell is by looking or asking to see their paper permit or sticker permit issued by a local health district in Virginia. VDH vendors that are set up in tents or other temporary setups should have a paper permit posted that was issued by a VDH local health district. Mobile units, such as food trucks that are permitted through the local health districts, will have a sticker that is affixed to the unit in a location that is visible to consumers. So, as they say, seeing is believing. You can also look at what they're serving to help determine if it's a VDH vendor. VDH vendors will be preparing food on site for sale or sample directly to consumers. As you will see on the right side of the slide, farm vendors or non-VDH vendors are either permitted or inspected by VDACS, or they may be exempt by law, or are farmers selling their own farm-produced products or offering samples of their farm-produced products at the market. Next slide, please. There is a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between VDH and VDACS. Under the MOU, many food vendors at farmers markets may be exempt from permitting and inspection by VDH. Vendors who are not regulated by VDH include vendors selling food items from approved sources, such as firms inspected by VDACS that include home and commercial kitchens, and food and beverage manufacturers. We also do not regulate vendors selling packaged food items that are exempt from VDACS inspection under the code section shown here. These vendors can sell their exempt products at farmers markets and do not require a VDH permit to sample these foods. VDACS will be sharing more details on this a little later this morning after our presentation. Next slide. Section 35.1-14, Regulations Governing Restaurants, Advisory Standards for Exempt Entities in the Code of Virginia states that The provision of the Food and Drug Administration's Food Code shall not apply to farmers offering their own farm-produced products directly to consumers for their personal use. This is like me and my dad selling sweet corn and watermelons that I mentioned earlier. Whether such sales occur on such farmer's farm or at farmers markets. In addition to this exemption, under the MOU between VDH and VDACS mentioned earlier, sampling of these farm-produced products are not subject to a VDH permit or inspection. Next slide. We often get asked what organizations are exempt from needing to obtain a VDH permit. And it's a good question because sometimes it's not clear. We have 4 categories of organizations that we look for when determining if they may be exempt from a permit. Churches, fraternal or school organizations, 501c3 organizations, and volunteer fire and medical services. If you're one of these 4 types of organizations, then we have 3 additional requirements that must all be met in order for their organization to be considered exempt. So that's kind of part 1 of a 2-part process. So the additional requirements: 1, the duration of the event cannot be more than 2 days. 2, food may only be prepared in the homes of its members, in the exempt organization's kitchen, if they have one, or purchased or donated from a permitted food establishment. And then 3, any food prepared on site, such as at a farmer's market, is not exempt from a permit. However, the permit fee may be waived if your organization is on the exempt list of organizations. So if you're cooking on site, even if you are an exempt organization, you need to have a permit. Next slide. So this is a new slide for this year. We wanted to take a moment and ask that our farmers markets familiarize themselves with the 9 major food allergens. This year in the General Assembly, there was new legislation passed that will require VDH to develop regulatory requirements around food allergen intolerance and sensitivities. So this year, VDH will be identifying stakeholders to help us gather input and ideas for these new requirements. So if you would like to learn more about food allergen awareness, you can visit our website and click on the allergens link. If you use the QR code that's shown on this slide, it'll take you to that website and just find allergens and click on it. It'll give you a bunch of information that you can start to familiarize yourself with food allergens if you're not familiar. And lastly, we'd like to invite any of our VAFMA vendors or managers to be part of this process with us. If you're interested, please shoot us an email at our food safety inbox there shown on the screen, and we can get you part of that stakeholder group so that you can have input from a farmer's market perspective. We would really like that. Next slide. So how do you tell the difference between a sample and food service? We get this question a lot as well. Examples of permissible sampling under the MOU that we have with VDACS: cutting up of produce for raw consumption, cutting up of baked goods for consumption, heating, cooking a farm-produced sausage or other meat product with limited modification, mixing of dips and service with chips or pretzels, providing salsa, etc., for sampling with chips or pretzels. And then here are some examples of activities for samples that require a VDH permit. So if you're assembling a pizza, or let's say a stir fry or a casserole or a salad, That would be putting several ingredients together, making a dish. That would be flagged for a permit. Or if you're adding a piece of commercially prepared hot dog to their baked hot dog buns or whatever, putting those two products together, technically making a sandwich, something like that, that would also trigger a VDH permit. And in our next presentation from VDACS, they're going to provide a little more details on guidelines for providing safe samples at farmers markets. Next slide, please. So at farmers markets across Virginia, you will typically find three different types of VDH permitted vendors. One, permitted food establishments. So these are your annually permitted food establishments that decide that they want to set up as a vendor at a farmer's market. They already have a permit for their facility, but they want to also prepare food at a farmer's market. That's one example. Second example are your mobile food units. These are also annually permitted food establishments in Virginia that are mobile, or on wheels. And we'll get into each of these next. And then the most common vendor at farmers markets are the temporary food establishments. And these are temporary vendors that are only permitted in connection to a temporary event, such as a farmer's market. All right, next slide, please. So now we're going to get into each of the three. So VDH permitted food establishments sometimes choose to offer food from their normal brick and mortar operation and set up as a temporary vendor at an event such as a farmer's market. When they choose to do so, they are allowed to prepare and serve the same types of food using the same process at the market that is done at their primary location and do not need to obtain additional permits to do so. They are still subject to inspection. A copy of their permit still must be posted. And inspections are based on VDH risk assessment, risk categories assigned to that establishment. So that covers our permitted food establishments. Next slide. So now the mobile food units. A mobile food unit is defined as a food establishment mounted on wheels, readily movable from place to place at all times during operation, and includes push carts, trailers, trucks, or vans. The unit, all operations, and all equipment must be integral to and be within or attached to the unit. So it's a one-man show. Everything is within the unit. These are commonly called food trucks or carts and are permitted by our local health districts where the commissary or owner operator resides if a commissary is not required. Due to the nature of the unit being mobile, these food establishments have an annual permit sticker that is valid statewide. However, some local health districts in Virginia may have additional local permitting or requirements. So please check ahead of setup and operation if you are going to be operating out of your normal area. Next slide, please. Mobile unit inspections, like brick and mortar food establishments inspections, are done based on risk assessment to determine the frequency. And I've mentioned several times this morning that mobile units have a sticker. On this slide, you can see that valid mobile unit stickers for this season are green and purple. While at the bottom left, you see that the red stickers from last year are now expired. So red means stop. If you see a red mobile unit sticker show up, you know they're out of permit and they need to get a new sticker. On the sticker, you can see the month of expiration and year the permit expires. Under that, you'll find other contact information related to mobile unit and the local health district name where the mobile unit was permitted. This information is helpful should you wish to look up the inspection history for the mobile unit or who to contact with questions related to the permit. Again, these permit stickers should be in plain view where the public is served. Next slide, please. And our last category of permit, and probably the most common you'll find at farmers markets, is the temporary food establishments, or TFEs. In our Virginia food regulations, a TFE is defined as a food establishment that operates for a period of no more than 14 consecutive days in conjunction with a single event or celebration. TFEs are also inspected based on risk assessment and typically are inspected ahead of first service. Next slide. Farmers market managers and vendors should be aware that an application for a TFE permit must be submitted at least 10 days prior to the operation of the event or the farmers market. This is very important to ensure that TFE vendors provide the local health district time to process their application, obtain any additional information that might be needed, and to plan for any inspections that might be required ahead of operation. We recommend checking with your local health district where the farmers market is located in advance to discuss any additional requirements that might be subject to that location. Permits for TFEs are only valid for the specified permit period on the permit. It can be up to 12 months. It could be a few days. It just depends on your application and your operation plans. It's not transferable from person to person, and permits must be posted during operation at the event. Next slide. TFEs are required to have all food preparation occur on site at the event and required to have the PIC, or the person in charge, be a certified food protection manager. So no food from home. Next slide. Here's an example of what a VDH temporary food establishment permit looks like. The permit must be posted where it can be easily seen by the public when operating and serving food. The permit will include the expiration date, the name of the operator, the type of permit, the name of the local health department, and the risk category assigned to the facility. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jessica to get into the operational requirements of VDH permitted food establishments and walk us through some example scenarios. Jessica?
All right, thanks, Whitney. My voice is a little raspy today. So regardless of what type of VDH permitted food vendor you are, there are operational requirements that apply. You'll need to identify the person in charge, or PIC or PIC. This is the person present at a food establishment who is responsible for the food service operation. And depending on your menu and processes, you may need a certified food protection manager, or CFPM. The CFPM is an employee that has the authority to oversee and manage food preparation activities and food service, and could also be the person in charge. To receive a CFPM certificate, the candidate must pass a test from one of the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, recognized programs. This credential demonstrates that they know what they need to about food safety regulations and safe food preparation and handling. And we do have a link to that list that ANSI maintains on our website. A TCS food is a food that requires time and temperature control for safety to limit the growth of harmful germs or toxins in the food. Most VDH permitted food establishments are required to have at least one CFPM. The exceptions are food establishments that do not serve TCS foods or do not cook TCS foods or only reheat fully cooked commercially processed foods and or only cold hold commercially processed foods. If you are going to cook or cool any TCS foods, your operation will need a certified food protection manager. All foods need to come from approved sources. When we say approved sources, we mean a manufacturer or supplier that is inspected on a regular basis by a regulatory agency. If you aren't sure your food suppliers are an approved source, please reach out to your local health department, and I'll explain how to do that later in the presentation. Please be aware that food from a private home is not an approved source. The next risk factor is think of employee health and hygiene as a three-legged stool. Each leg represents an element that is essential to safe food handling practices. So with employee health, you need to review your employee health policy with your food workers. All VDH permitted food establishments are required to have an employee health policy. If they have signs and symptoms of illness, such as vomiting, diarrhea, jaundice, or open cuts or sores on your arms and hands, or you're diagnosed with one of the big 6 illnesses, they should not work with food contact surfaces, and equipment, or should be excluded from work until cleared by a doctor. Hand washing and no bare hand contact are the other 2 legs of the stool. So if one leg isn't strong, the others won't work well either. They go hand in hand to prevent foodborne illnesses. The Virginia food regulations are modeled after the FDA food code and identify the proper time and temperatures for which various TCS foods need to be cooked to kill disease-causing germs. Your certified food protection manager should know what these minimum temperatures are and should be monitoring and verifying the temperatures with a food thermometer. You want to make sure that cold food stays cold at or below 41 degrees and hot food stays hot at or above 135 degrees. This stops harmful germs from rapidly growing and making someone ill. Lastly, when utensils or equipment get dirty, they can transfer germs that can make you sick to the food. If utensils or equipment aren't cleaned and sanitized regularly, bits of old food are left on the utensils and equipment at room temperature, allowing the bacteria in that old food to grow fast. If ready-to-eat food touches those dirty utensils or equipment, the food can get contaminated too. So hand wash stations come in many shapes and forms. And whether you are a mobile unit, a permitted food establishment, or a TFE, you have to have some form of hand washing. A mobile unit will have a hand sink on their unit. These are different examples of what hand washing stations could look like. They all need to have a gravity-fed container with a lever spigot filled with warm water, and the water has to come from an approved source. You'll have to have a catch bucket to keep the dirty water from falling on the ground. You'll need hand soap and paper towels and hand washing signage, something like employees must wash hands. This slide provides a visual overview of the 5 risk factors for foodborne illness. The 5 risk factors for foodborne illness are food from unapproved sources. So you want to make sure you have your receipts and invoices available. And remember that food includes water. You need to use approved water hoses to fill your water up. Green garden hoses are not acceptable. They need to be food grade hoses. The second risk factor is improper employee health and hygiene. Do not work when you are sick, and make sure you wash your hands after changing tasks, and change your gloves when they become dirty or torn, and make sure you wash your hands before putting new gloves on. The third risk factor is improper holding temperatures. This includes hot and cold holding. You want to make sure you use a thin tip probe thermometer to check your food temperatures. And keep thermometers in your cooler or refrigerator at the warmest location to easily monitor the temperature. The fourth risk factor is improper cooking temperatures. Again, you want to use a thin tip probe thermometer to check your food temperatures. Lastly, dirty and/or contaminated utensils and equipment. Wash, rinse, and sanitize your food contact surfaces. And make sure to check your sanitizer concentration using the appropriate test strip. Prevent cross-contamination of ready-to-eat foods, and prevent contamination of clean utensils and equipment. You also want to make sure that you dispose of your wastewater properly. Do not dispose your water on the ground or in a storm drain. Check with your market manager or the event coordinator to see if they are providing wastewater disposal. Approved methods of disposal include through a sanitary sewer connection or approved wastewater tanks collected by an approved wastewater disposal company. Now we'll go through some TFE permitting process scenarios. Our first scenario is Whitney wants to sell Berea grilled cheese sandwiches at his local farmer's market. What does he need to do? The first thing he'll want to do is contact the local health department. They will provide him with the temporary food establishment application and walk Whitney through the process. Please be mindful that not all local health departments use the state application, and there may be local requirements specific for events like farmers markets. So the next thing he's going to do is complete the TFE application and pay the $40 state fee. Please be aware that local fees may also apply. And he'll need to do this at least 10 days prior to participating in a farmer's market. Remember that the $40 fee covers you for the calendar year. You may be required to complete new applications, but not necessarily pay the fee to participate in multiple farmers markets. You need to make sure that you keep the receipt showing that you paid the $40 state fee. Here's some other tips for Whitney when filling out his application. Know the name and location of the farmers markets. Know who the market coordinator is and have their contact information, such as the name, phone number, and/or email. Know the dates of the farmers market. This is the date range which you plan to operate. The dates of operation could be a single farmers market, or it could be multiple farmers markets, or a market with multiple dates. For example, the Richmond, Virginia Big Market at Bryan Park is a weekly market occurring throughout the summer and winter. You need to know what foods will be on your menu. Any food for sale must be on the menu. So make sure you put those foods you want to sell or prepare. You can't add items to the menu the day of the farmer's market. Remember, unapproved food cannot be sold. You also want to make sure to have a copy of the CFPM certificate available. They must be on site at the farmer's market during operation. So here we have a second scenario. Now that Whitney has his TFE permit for the Berea grilled cheese sandwiches from Richmond City, he has decided he would like to participate in a farmer's market in Virginia Beach. So what does he need to do? Well, if the permit has not expired, he should contact the Virginia Beach Health Department and provide them with a copy of his TFE permit that was issued by Richmond City, his most recent VDH inspection report, and let them know he is planning to participate in a farmer's market in Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach Health Department will determine if any additional steps are needed. If the permit is expired, contact the Virginia Beach Health Department. They will provide him with the TFE application and walk him through the process again. He should also provide a copy of his receipt from Richmond City to avoid any additional state fees if it's still within the calendar year. The one thing that we really want to stress to our market managers and coordinators is that we are here to help you have a successful market. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the local health department with any questions that you have. We want to support y'all. Here are some points to consider. Some localities have local ordinances with more stringent requirements than the state food regulations. Some localities have local event coordinator forms to complete. And please do not hesitate to contact us or your local health department with your questions. Now, how can you help us out? Work with the local health department when organizing your market. Let us know when and where the market will open in advance. Keep in mind that VDH TFE vendors need to apply for a permit at least 10 days prior to their participation in the farmers market. Provide your list of vendors so we can determine who is exempt, who needs permitting, and who requires a CFPM. This is crucial to have a successful market and ensuring food safety. That way, we know ahead of time who is going to be at the event, what they are serving, do they have a permit, are they exempt, do they have a CFPM. I can speak as a former field person with the local health department. We like things to run smooth on the day of the event. So we like to have all these things in advance. So we're not having to ask you to stop operating because you didn't have your hand wash station set up. Also, request the vendor or farmer to provide you with a copy of their VDH or VDACS permit. So now here's some tools to help you locate your local health department. You can scan this QR code. Thank you, Whitney, for providing all of our QR codes. I am not as tech savvy. It will take you to our website here. This is what the local health districts page looks like. You can find your local health department one of two ways. You can use the local health department locator tool, or you can refer to the map and click on your locality. When you visit our food safety in Virginia website, this is what our main landing page looks like. You can find information that includes policies and local ordinances, general information on temporary food establishments, general information on mobile units, and you can also look at the VDACS VDH MOU. This slide indicates what localities have local requirements for TFEs and mobile units and is under the Policies and Local Ordinances tab. This QR code will take you directly to our TFE webpage. And this is what our TFE webpage looks like. Remember that the information on our website here is very general, and a lot of your local health departments will have temporary food establishment websites that are specific to their district. This QR code will take you directly to the VDH VDACS MOU page. And this is what you'll find on that webpage. And then we have created this list of resources for vendors. These are the links to see the exemptions to the VDACS food regulations and to the VDH food regulations, and all the general information on how to apply for permitting, what companies or businesses provide approved certified food protection manager courses, the list of localities that have local ordinances or additional requirements for TFEs. You'll find employee health information, food regulations, and food allergen awareness. Again, You can contact us at foodsafety@vdh.virginia.gov. And then we just want to thank Kim and the Virginia Farmers Markets Association and all of the speakers and participants for this summit. If you would like to reach out to Whitney or myself directly, these are our personal emails. And then you can also contact us at foodsafety@vdh.virginia.gov. And please feel free to send us suggestions if you feel that we missed a topic so we can review for next year.
Thank
And
you so much.
yes, and I haven't looked at the Q&A or the chat, so
I've been answering some of the Q&A stuff, Jess. I think we're pretty good, but
I
yeah, if
appreciate
anybody has questions, now's a good time.
We have a clarifying point in the chat. Jess and Whitney, are you able to clarify that unpermitted home operations are not approved sources, permitted home ops are approved sources under 12 VAC 5-421-270B?
Yes, that's right. If the home operation is permitted by VDACS, then they would be considered approved. What we're talking about is if you are not approved as a VDACS processor out of your home, then the food is not going to be considered from an approved source. Does that clarify that?
It does, yes. And I think that one of the things that I will make sure that I mention when we do this every year is that one of the reasons why we host this summit is so that vendors know that there are multiple agencies that they may be engaged with in order to be able to sell their product, depending on what that product is. So you may need to get certifications or permits from both the Department of Health and Department of Agriculture. And within the Department of Agriculture, you also have multiple divisions where something may be required under food safety, but it's not required under pet food or produce safety, et cetera. And so make sure as a vendor that you are looking at all of the different products that you are growing, producing, and making to sell retail to the public through a farmer's market, because there may be multiple organizations and or multiple departments that you need to work with in order to get the appropriate permits, et cetera. And we are trying to make this as clear and transparent as possible because we're the first to admit it is confusing. There are a lot of state agencies, as you will see by the next 3 days, that have their fingers in the farmers market world. And so just because something is permitted or not permitted under VDH doesn't mean that it doesn't fall under VDACS, et cetera. If you are ever confused, Whitney and Jessica are amazing. They're very easy to reach out to and provide you with the answers and or send you to the right person if it's a different agency, as well as myself. Please feel free to reach out at any time and we will make sure that we get you the information or connect you to the right person. And let me just remind everybody before we hop on to talking about VDACS, please put all of your questions into the Q&A. I do not have the ability to put questions as the host in there, so I need you to drop your questions in the Q&A and we will make sure that they get answered. So thank you all for raising your hand, et cetera, but drop your questions in the Q&A and we will answer those to the best of our ability or get those answered for you. Any last questions or thoughts before we move on from VDH? Awesome as always to have you all here and all of the great work that you do. Thank you so much. We are going to move over now to the Department of Agriculture. And if you would drop your question into the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. We are going to go ahead and get started with the Department of Agriculture. We have Rochelle Bland, who is the Produce Safety Manager for the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And Rochelle will be providing you with the overview from VDACS. I see a lot of y'all have dropped questions in here in the Q&A about cottage law, and freeze-dried foods, et cetera. So we will be getting to those. Rochelle, I am going to let you take it away.
Sounds good, Kim. Thank you. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
everybody. My name is Rochelle Bland. I'm a food safety manager with the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Food Safety Program. And like Kim said, we're going to be doing an overview of our regulations as well as our permit process and the cottage exemptions, as you guys know them as the cottage law. So first, I'd like to start with some jurisdiction. So as Whitney and Jess covered this morning, we share certain aspects of retail food. So on the VDACS side, we do retail stores such as grocery stores and convenience stores. And then we also do large and small manufacturers, including home kitchens, commercial kitchen, food processing operations, and other manufacturers, as well as warehouses and distribution centers. While VDH has the food service aspect, restaurants, mobile food units, temporary food establishments, and we have that memorandum of understanding to help us delineate where things may overlap and who has responsibility there. Overall, all food products must be made in an inspected and permitted kitchen unless an exemption applies and is followed. So applicable regulations on our side, we have the Virginia Food and Drink Law, that's VDACS law, that's our statutory authority. 21 CFR 101 food labeling. So when we say CFR, that refers to the Code of Federal Regulations. We adopt the regulations that the FDA has. So on the manufactured food side, the regulations that we have in Virginia are essentially the same as at the federal level, with certain state-specific exceptions such as the cottage law. So food labeling applies to all operators. Then 21 CFR 117 is the current good manufacturing practices. So this is the base level regulation, covers training requirements, floors, walls, ceilings, temperatures, processing, things like that. However, depending on the types of food that you make, you may have additional regulations that apply to you as well. So for example, seafood, juice, acidified foods, dietary supplements, those have additional regulations on top of 101 for food labeling and on top of 117 for GMPs. So we're going to cover the permitting process first. Starting a new food processing business in Virginia, this QR code will take you to our website. You can email us at foodsafety@vdacs.virginia.gov, and this is our main phone number. Once you call that number, you can get to the correct region. Just listen to the options depending on the localities, but we also have a map that I will be covering later. On our website, we have our permit applications and how-to documents for each application. We also have informational handouts and guidance documents and links to applicable laws and regulations. We are in the middle of finalizing our updated regulations. We've done a lot of work to condense the process, to streamline it, make the language more clear to applicants so it's easier for you to know exactly what you need to do to prepare your application packet as well as prepare for inspection. So be on the lookout for that. They should be out within the next month or so. We're in the final stages of review and then getting it up on our website and things like that. So we hope we're excited about the new applications and we hope that they'll be easier for you guys to use as well. So big question we get is what is considered a home food processor? So for us, we also refer to this as a home operation or a home op. Home food processors operate within a private residence. Some localities may have restrictions on the types of food businesses that could be done at home, but on the state level, this is what we consider a home food processor. A non-home food processor operates in a facility that is separate from the private residence. So this does include separate structures on your personal property and shared use facilities such as a detached garage, a barn, a commissary kitchen, a commercial kitchen, etc. So to be a home food processor, you're operating within your home. If you're operating within your personal kitchen, there are certain allowances we make to help you get set up with your normal sinks and things like that. But if you move to a different room of your home or your basement or your attached garage, there are additional requirements that may be needed to make sure that that food processing space is just like any other, to make sure that you're doing things in a safe manner. And again, if you're a non-home food processor, not attached to a private home, that that is considered a non-home food processor. Okay. So for our permit application process, you'll get your application packet, you put it all together. We do prefer you email us. This is where we get the majority of our applications. So food safety at VDACS.virginia.gov. We do also accept them by mail. You can mail them to our PO box, and then we will still scan it in and get it into our system. Please make sure all items on the application checklist are provided with your application packet. Our how-to documents for our applications go line by line for what you need for each part of the application, as well as additional food safety information that is helpful to you in preparing for your inspection, and understanding what regulations and requirements may apply to you. And every application has a checklist at the end of it that will help you double check that you submitted all the documents and pages that we need. During the application process, we'll receive your application, we'll assign it an application number. You will receive an email from one of our administrative staff with that application number and letting you know where your application is. If there are missing pieces, such as a floor plan, or there are certain recipes missing or labels, they will ask you for that. Once they get all the pieces that they need, the application can move forward to application review. So again, you're getting contacted within a week of us receiving your application with your application number and a general list of items if they are missing from the application. Once we have all those items, you will move forward to review of your application, and that's where we work with you to make sure the things that you submitted are correct, including potential revisions if needed, especially on labels. During the process, one of our reviewers may contact you for revisions or request additional information prior to the approval of your application. Current reviews may take 8 to 10 weeks, but it is very dependent on the completeness and accuracy of your application and your responsiveness when we do reach out to you for revisions, because we can't move forward until certain things are fixed. After the application review is complete, one of our food safety specialists will contact you to schedule your pre-operational inspection. Then you'll complete that inspection, and once you successfully complete it, you'll get approval to sell your products and a permit to operate. Very important thing to consider for our home operations: if you have pets within your home, the areas where you're processing your foods or storing your foods have to be completely enclosed and separated from the rest of the home in a way that your pets are excluded at all times. So it is not enough to, for example, put your dog in the living room while you're baking bread in the kitchen, and then the other times they have free reign of the home. Your processing area needs to exclude your pets at all times. So solid hinge doors that can be latched or closed shut, baby gates, or again, like just temporarily moving your pets while you're operating, do not satisfy this requirement. This can be difficult in businesses, in homes that have like an open floor plan. That's more often where we see someone go to a separate room of their house or a garage, or they build a shed in the back to make sure they have a dedicated space where their pets are going to be excluded. And we can work with you on that. It's not uncommon at all. And that another option could also be going to a commissary or commercial kitchen where you're not operating at home anymore, you're operating in a different space. So by default, your pets are excluded. But just wanted to call that out because it is very important as you guys plan your businesses. New products. So this is another change that's coming along with our updated applications that are in progress. To this point, we have required home operations to submit all of their products and for review before they're able to sell it. Moving forward, we will continue to review your recipes and labels for approval as a courtesy, but you will no longer be required to submit every single product. An important exception to that is going to be if, for example, you're approved to sell baked goods and then you want to go into the acidified product space or the seafood product space. You do need approval before you sell those types of products because there's additional regulations required, and I'll cover that in a couple of slides. But in general, if you're staying within your same realm, you will no longer be required to submit every single product before you sell. But you can absolutely do so if you want us to take a look at your labels to make sure that they're correct, because we know labels are not cheap and we want to help you get them right before you spend your money on them. Specialized food processing. So as I just mentioned, certain things like seafood, acidified products, and other items are considered specialized food processing that have additional requirements necessary for approval prior to selling those foods. Some of these requirements include additional regulations, specific training, hazard analysis, product assessments, product evaluations, process filing, sampling, or documentation. So this slide has some examples of specialized processes, of the specialized processes I'm referring to. This is not an all-inclusive list. There's a lot of different food products out there. These are just the more common ones that we're seeing, so we wanted to highlight. So for example, acidified foods, there's certain training that you need to complete for that. You need to file with the FDA. You have to get your products evaluated. There's additional things that are needed before you can sell these products. Baby food is a newer one. This is state specific. The Baby Food Protection Act went into effect that requires evaluation of your products and certain toxic heavy metal testing, as well as certain label requirements to make sure the results of that testing is available for your customers. Main point here is if you have a specialized process, we will work with you to make sure you get your approvals and know what is going to be required of you before you can sell those. Touching on dairy products very briefly, dairy products, like Kim said, there's a lot of agencies and programs that cover different aspects of food safety, and dairy is one of them. In VDACS, we have the VDACS Dairy Services Program. They cover manufactured grade dairy products such as cheese, butter, cream cheese, ice cream, dairy and non-dairy frozen desserts. So if you're manufacturing those products, you would contact our Dairy Services Program. If you're manufacturing grade A dairy products, such as fluid milk, yogurt, kefir, cottage cheese, buttermilk, and whey, you would contact the Department of Health, and we have the QR code here for the local health districts, just like Jess showed that webpage earlier. Also briefly covering this is meat and poultry. So this is another area that has some overlap with multiple programs. Food containing meat, poultry, or catfish cannot be processed in a home operation. However, manufacturers that are not home-based may process certain meat or poultry products under VDACS food safety, such as closed-face sandwiches and products containing less than 2% cooked meat and poultry or less than 3% raw meat and poultry. Other meat and poultry products may fall to the Office of Meat and Poultry Services. And again, when you're questioning that, ask one or the other program will get you to the right place. I just wanted to highlight that it does depend. Another common area of overlap is food containing alcohol. So while we cover the food aspect, certain things that contain alcohol are also covered by Virginia ABC, and I believe they're presenting later this week. So, for example, when we are permitting a brewery, we are covering the food safety aspects of that beverage, while ABC is permitting the alcohol and the alcoholic labeling and those kind of requirements. So again, when there's an overlap between the two, we'll work together to make sure you guys have what you need to move forward. Just highlighting this is a common one, and that you may need to be testing your product to make sure that you're within the alcohol limits or get additional permits. Labeling. This is a very, very big one. Labels are important for your customer and for you as a business. The labeling regulation is very extensive, but not all of it applies to everyone at the same time. So we're just going to cover a couple of highlights. Main 4 things that you need on your label are the statement of identity. What is the food? The common name of the product. The ingredients list, making sure you're including sub-ingredients and allergens, and you list them in order from most heavy to least heavy based on your recipe. The name and address of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, and the net quantity statement and standard and metric units. On this slide, we have an example 1 panel label that has everything on the same panel. So the common name of the food is chocolate chip cookies. Then we have our ingredient statement, and you can see the parentheses next to wheat flour. Those are the sub-ingredients for the wheat flour, and a contain statement at the end calling out the allergens. Granny's cookies with the address, that's the name and address of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, and the net weight statement at the bottom. There are multi-panel labels, and the labeling requirements of like where you place certain things can change. But again, we work with you on that. This QR code takes you to an FDA labeling guidance document, but our how-to documents for our permit applications also have examples of correct and incorrect labels and different things to consider as you make your labels. Specific to allergens, when an allergen is included in an ingredient, the common key allergen word must be included on the label, either within the ingredient statement or in an allergen contains statement. So the key allergen words for the 9 major allergens in the United States are milk, wheat, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts. You have to specify the type of nut, soybeans, fish, specifying the type of fish, crustacean shellfish, and sesame, which is the newest one that's been added to the list. On the 2 examples on this slide, on the left, this is an example of the allergens being listed within the ingredient statement. And on the right is the allergens being listed with a contained statement at the end. The text does not need to be in red or bold or anything like that, where you just have it in red for the example so you can see the difference between the 2 ways to declare your allergens. Again, we will work with you guys on this. These are the required allergens that are to be declared. You may have a customer base that has other allergens, and that's up to you on how you would like to declare them. But as far as labeling requirements, you have to declare these, and you have to be aware of them in your products, especially as you're giving samples, as samples are not typically packaged. So you need to have that information available for your customers. Now, nutritional labeling. Your nutrition facts panel is required on packages, except unless there is an exemption that applies. Many of our small businesses in Virginia qualify for the exemptions, but I'll cover them very briefly. Essentially, these are FDA exemptions to nutritional labeling based on the number of employees you have and the number of product units sold. So if you're a business with less than 100 employees and less than 100,000 units of product, you can file for an exemption with the FDA. If you're a company with less than 10 employees and less than 10,000 units of product sold, then you're automatically exempt without needing to file for that exemption from the FDA. However, it is really important to point out that the nutritional labeling exemptions do not apply if you make a nutrient content claim on your product. So for example, if you claim something is low sodium, you have to have a nutrition facts panel to prove that claim. There are different claims, there's a lot of different claims, and we cover those in our how-tos, and we can cover them with you on a case-by-case basis to help you. But the main point is, if you're making claims on your label, you have to have the evidence to back that up. You just can't say low sodium and there's no nutrition facts panel to let your customer know how much sodium is in that product. So now that we've covered permitting, we're going to go into certain aspects of the cottage law, which is our home kitchen food processing exemption. This QR code will take you to our FAQ document, and it will be updated this summer as a result of certain changes that have been going on in the General Assembly this session. I will be doing an overview of the changes to the cottage exemption from this session. However, certain things, like certain specific case-by-case questions, we may not be able to answer today as we're still meeting with our agency on interpretation and enforcement, but we will be covering the change in language. So the Virginia Food and Drink Law, specifically 5130, allows certain foods to be made from a private home without a permit from the VDACS Food Safety Program with certain guidelines, restrictions, and parameters. These products can only be made in your private home and sold to an individual for their own consumption. In general, the exemption covers certain foods under 3 general categories: low-risk foods, acidified vegetables, and honey, and we will be covering those on the next few slides. So, low-risk foods. I won't cover all of these, but it's a pretty long list. These are specifically listed in the exemption in our food and drink law. These products are allowed to be made in your home and sold to individuals for their own consumption without a permit. If the product is not on this list, you need a permit to sell it. One very common example where there can be some confusion are the baked goods. The exemption specifically allows baked goods that do not require time or temperature control after preparation. So for example, something like cookies. Cookies are shelf stable. They typically do not require time or temperature control. They're fine to be done without a permit under the exemption. However, something like a cheesecake, that does require time and temperature control for safety because of its custard-like properties. You would not be able to do a product like cheesecake under the exemption. You need a permit to do so. Another item that can commonly come up with baked goods is buttercream frosting and cream cheese frosting. That depends on the recipe. You can send it to us by email and we'll let you know whether that particular frosting is time temperature control for safety or not. Also, time or temperature control is often referred to as TCS. So like we said earlier, we have lots of acronyms in the regulatory space. So the best advice we can give you is when in doubt, please ask, especially if you're not sure if one of your items falls under these categories. These items can be freeze dried under the exemption. But again, if you're freeze drying foods that are not on this list, you need a permit to do so. So you can freeze dry your candy, freeze dry your fruits, freeze dry your herbs, because they are allowed on this list. But if you're freeze drying something like, I don't know, like ice cream or even, I don't know, there's lots of things that we're freeze drying nowadays. But the main point is if it's on this list, you can keep doing that without a permit. If it's not on the list, you need a permit to do it. So the next category of foods are acidified vegetables. So this is specifically pickles that have an equilibrium pH of 4.6 or lower, and acidified vegetables that have, again, an equilibrium pH of 4.6 or lower. The way the law is written, this is specifically acidified vegetables. So things that are not allowed are canned acid foods, fermented foods, foods that require refrigeration for safety, canned fruits, and low acid canned vegetables. So again, this is acidified vegetables, not anything else. So you can't do an acidified fruit product without, under the exemption, you need a permit to do that. And another parameter of the exemption is that you must not exceed $9,000 in total annual gross sales for your acidified vegetable products. If you're over that, then you need a permit. And also if you're making any acidified products that are not covered by the exemption. Because acidified vegetables are a higher risk product, we do have some recommendations. To reduce the likelihood of foodborne illness, home canned acidified vegetables must have an equilibrium pH value of 4.6 or lower to inhibit the growth and formation of toxins from bacteria that cause botulism. You need an electronic pH meter so you can test your product and make sure the pH is right. But we also strongly advise exempt home food processors have their process reviewed and validated by a process authority and complete a recognized better process control school course. Both of these recommendations are requirements for permitted acidified food processors, but we also strongly recommend even if you're not permitted, because we really want you guys to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want your business to be safe and your customers to be safe. Now, for the low risk foods and the acidified vegetables, there are certain labeling requirements in the law, additional to the labeling requirements that we covered a few slides ago that apply to all products. So packaged food products must be labeled as required by law. And in addition to mandatory labeling, exempt products must also include the producer's name and phone number, the producer's physical address, and then in red, I have one of the changes from this season's General Assembly that they added a post office box number in place of the street address being allowed on exempt product labels. The date the food was processed, essentially the day you made that food, and the disclaimer statement, not for resale, processed and prepared without state inspection. So again, you need to do all the labeling things that we covered a few slides ago, and then these are state-specific requirements for exempt products. This is another place where there was changes this General Assembly, point of sale requirements. So in the current version of the Food and Drink Law exemption, the cottage law, The exempt products are sold to an individual in the Commonwealth for their own consumption in person, at the private home, temporary event, or farmer's market. They cannot be sold online, delivered in person, by mail, or by delivery service, sold for resale or consignment, sold across state lines, or offered for sale to be used in or offered for consumption in retail food establishments. Again, these are non-permitted products and they are not approved sources. Effective July 1st of this year, the changes are that you're still selling to an individual in the Commonwealth for their own consumption, but now you can sell in person, online, and by phone, and at any location, delivered in person, by mail, or by delivery service. And I also want to highlight what did not change. You still cannot sell for resale or consignment. You cannot lease shelf space in a retail store and have them sell your products for you. You need to be the one selling your products. And you still cannot sell across state lines. So even though online sales are going to be allowed effective July 1st, those products cannot be sold across state lines, and you need to make sure your websites reflect that and that your business processes reflect that. And they still cannot be offered for sale to be used in or offered for consumption in retail food establishments. These are the biggest changes to the exemption to the cottage law as a result of this General Assembly. The food products did not change. It's essentially expanding the point of sale locations that you can sell these products without a permit. And again, this is an overview. We will be updating our FAQ accordingly once we've discussed implementation, interpretation, and enforcement with our agency. The third category is kind of its own thing, honey. So honey allowed under the exemption is for private homes where the resident processes and prepares pure honey produced by their own hives. The limit is 250 gallons of honey annually, and you don't process and sell other products in addition to the honey except as allowed under the exemption. So if you're an exempt honey processor, you can do the other exempt foods that we just covered. But once you start going into food products that require a permit, your honey also needs to be done under permit. It's also important to highlight that this exemption is specific to pure honey. So value-added products like infused honey do not count for the exemption. You need a permit to do those types of products. The labeling requirements for honey are different than the low-risk foods and acidified vegetables. The disclaimer statement for honey products is processed and prepared without state inspection. Warning, do not feed honey to infants under 1 year old. Again, it's a little bit different than the other two categories, but a disclaimer statement is still required. The other difference with honey is that there are no restrictions on where you can sell it. So you can sell honey online, you can sell it across state lines, you can resell it, and also what we refer to resale as wholesale. This is specific to honey. It does not apply to the other categories. So that's our cottage law, our home food processing exemptions in a nutshell. The next few slides are covering preparing for the market, which Jess and Whitney covered very well this morning. So mine is a briefer overview. So heading to the market, make sure you're obtaining your food from an approved source. Maintain time and temperature control at all times, including during transport. Keep your transportation vehicle clean. Thermometers. You want an ambient air thermometer in each refrigerator or cooler. This is necessary so you know that whether your cooler or your refrigerator is working properly. You want the air to be about 38 degrees to keep your foods at 41 or below. Then for your actual foods, you want a metal stem probe type thermometer to take the internal temperature of foods. And if your products are shelf stable, then you don't need to worry about thermometers. So using ice for food storage. So you can use ice and ice packs to keep your things cold. Just make sure that you're draining your ice frequently. And except for fruits and vegetables, do not store foods in direct contact with ice. We have general recommendations such as bringing an extra cooler full of ice to help full of ice or extra ice packs to help you maintain that throughout the day as you're draining your main supply. Provide pictures or a menu of your products so your customers know what you're offering without you having to constantly open your cooler and affect your temperature control. And just note that food items held outside of the cooler, such as for display only, must be discarded at the end of the day. Practice good personal hygiene and cleanliness. So please do not be sick while you're handling food products, either processing them at home or on site at the market. Have clean clothes and outer garments, hair restraints, have your hair tied back or wear a hat or hairnet. No smoking, eating, or drinking in the area where you have exposed foods. Wash your hands very frequently. When in doubt, wash your hands. No fingernail polish, no jewelry on hands or arms. Now, along with practicing good hygiene and cleanliness, we do have some best practices for sampling. Again, Jess and Whitney did a great job covering most sampling requirements. Mine is just a brief overview. We have a QR code that links you to our guidelines for providing safe food samples. We do recommend that you try to prep before getting to the market. Because as they said earlier, if you're prepping on site, you may need an additional permit, but you also would need certain things like a hand washing station, making sure, and sometimes even a 3-compartment sink if you're like washing, rinsing it, and sanitizing utensils on site. So if you prep ahead of time, it can lessen the work that you have to do at the market. Please use tongs, deli paper, toothpicks, etc. to provide samples to your customers. And as I mentioned earlier, make sure your customers and employees are aware of allergens in your samples. So both exempt and permitted products can be sampled. So if you're selling cookies, you can offer pieces of those cookies as samples, provided you're following the sampling requirements, and that they're free samples. So protecting your food at the market, making sure that you're storing your food and equipment in a clean and dry location so that it's not exposed to splash, dust, or other contaminants. Please make sure you're not having any bare hand contact, especially with ready-to-eat foods. Protect food from your customers and from pets. So have covered containers, sneeze guards, little covered ramekins for your samples. All of that can help keep your food safe. And have overhead cover and ground cover. Again, this is just couple bullet points that to support what Jess and Whitney covered earlier. If you need a hand washing site station set up, this is just an example of one. So you'd have the wastewater, the actual water basin, soap, paper towels, and garbage can nearby. And if you needed to set up a warewashing station at the market, this is just one example. You'd have your wash basin with water and detergent, your clean water for rinsing, and your water and bleach or another approved sanitizer for sanitizing. So when you're sanitizing your equipment, you must use approved sanitizers for food contact surfaces and use them in accordance with manufacturer instructions. These are the 2 most common ones that we see, but there are others that may be approved. So this is unscented bleach and quaternary ammonium. And then you also need test strips to measure and ensure you have the appropriate sanitation concentration of sanitizer. Typically 50 to 100 parts per million for chlorine and 200 to 400 parts per million for quaternary ammonium. But depending on the specific product that you use, the concentrations may be a little bit different. That's why we always say refer to the manufacturer instructions and follow those. Okay. This is our map to our different regions. The food safety program is spread in 4 regions across the state. We have our Southwest region in green, our Central region in purple, our Northern Virginia region in orange, and our Tidewater region in blue. Each region has a regional supervisor, a technical specialist, a field standardization and audit officer, and 9 to 10 food safety specialists. So this map helps you get to the correct office for where you live. But when in doubt, again, always contact our program and we'll get you to the right place. Me and my co-manager, Karen Bergen, our contact information is at the end of my presentation today, but we are both over the food safety program. Karen specifically covers Southwest and Nova, and I cover Central and Tidewater. Also on our website, you can see our inventory of permitted firms. So if you're curious if somebody is permitted by us, it is available on our website, as well as information on recent inspections. And that concludes my presentation for today. Again, we have our general food safety program contact information, our email and our number. And then you can contact me directly if you'd like, and for anything, but specifically in your Central and Tidewater. And Karen is for Nova and Southwest. But again, just reach out to us. We'll get you guys to the right place if you're unsure. So again, thank you, VAFMA, for having me today, and thank you to everyone else for our continued collaboration and partnership.
Rochelle, thank you so much. I can't even begin to tell you how much I appreciate all that you do and the folks over at Food Safety at VDACS to help our markets be successful. You are always available, you and Jessica and Whitney. I feel like you're part of my family. Thank you so much. And I had to giggle as you were going over honey, because you and I went around and around. Food safety is very complicated. And every product, there is not one label or one answer for every product. There is no silver bullet. Different products require different labels, different packaging, different inspections, etc. And it's awesome that there's somebody like you and your staff to support us. You've got a bunch of questions, so thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And then really quick, Kim, I meant to say this at the beginning of my presentation, but I have some of my team members on here helping with Q&A today. So if you guys get an answer from Amara Kaleem, Megan Music, and Elaine Beiser, they are in the Q&A helping. So they are from VDACS, and that's what they're here for today. And I'm very appreciative of their help.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your help also. Yes, there's a bunch of VDACS questions that are in there, and even some additional honey questions. I've been getting a lot of questions about the cottage law change from the General Assembly this year, as I've been out doing vendor kickoff meetings and meeting with farmers markets to get them ready to reopen. And we've got some questions here in the chat too. Can you clarify just one more time what the cottage law, the new change in being able to sell cottage law products from home means?
Let me bring that slide back up, because for me, it's easier to have a visual. So give me one moment.
I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what this means for Virginia. It's only selling products in Virginia, not North Carolina, not Tennessee, not West Virginia, not Washington, D.C. Only Virginia.
Exactly. Only Virginia within the state. So for cottage products, starting July 1st, you're still only selling to individuals within the Commonwealth of Virginia. What has changed is that now you can sell online and by phone, whereas before on the left side of the slide, you could only do in person. Then as far as locations, again, right now, you can only do it sell your products at your home, at a temporary event, or a farmer's market. But the change is that it now says any location delivered in person, by mail, or delivery service. So you're not restricted to your home, an event, or farmer's market. There are other locations you can sell. However, that is still within the state of Virginia. You cannot resell, you cannot do consignment, can't go to North Carolina with your exempt products, and you can't sell your products in other retail food establishments or manufactured food establishments. So there's more to come as far as clarification and specific scenarios that we'll have in our FAQ. But this is highlighting what the language change did. Does that help, Kim?
It does. Thank you. I think it's worth repeating. So I appreciate that so much. Like I said, I've gotten a lot of questions on it. So folks are very, 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 very excited.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions too. So yeah, we'll have more information as we get our agency's interpretation of the language change, but that is what the highlights are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we've heard the overreaching food safety from the Department of Health and from VDACS, and we've heard about the MOU. Things are so much cleaner and more transparent now that these two state agencies have the MOU. So you have more clear lines to who you need to reach out to for what products. It's clear as mud, but still clear. Anyway, I appreciate everything that y'all do. Thank you so much. We're going to dive deeper into the different components of VDACS, the different departments. And today we're going to cover weights and measures and food safety. We'll be getting into other departments tomorrow and Thursday, which I will review in as we wrap up. But in the meantime, as additional questions come to mind regarding anything that you've heard from VDACS or VDH, drop them in the Q&A because they're here to answer your questions specifically. So please put those in there. Our next presenter is weights and measures. And as market managers here, I hope you all are asking weights and measures to come out to your vendor kickoff meetings to calibrate scales and all of that and get people lined up and ready to go. But in the meantime, I wanted to just make sure that, again, we're very clear on what the expectations are regarding weights and measures, the labeling for weights and measures, pricing, et cetera. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Anthony Ramsey. He is the program manager for weights and measures. He has Gary Melton, who we've dealt with for many years, has moved over to a different department at VDACS, and Anthony is the new Gary, I guess we will say. He is who we will reach out to for any of our questions, et cetera, for weights and measures. So Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you. And for all of those market managers, Anthony, that are interested in having weights and measures come out for their meetings, if you would let us know. A lot of markets do, they'll either invite you to market the first day or invite you to a market manager meeting or something of that sort, or a vendor kickoff. If you'll let us know the appropriate folks to reach out to also for that now, that would be awesome. So thank you, Anthony, for being with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kim. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
All right, good. I do appreciate the opportunity to share weights and measures and for all the work that Gary did. He's still within VDACS, so I use him a lot. I told him he should have left completely if he didn't want to be bothered. So, so no, definitely appreciate everyone that's on today and allowing us to inform this farmer market community. So we definitely appreciate it. Let's see. All right, so we're just going to review types of sale, method of sale, labeling, and then probably the biggest topic we face, or maybe challenge even, is the scales used in the market setting. So I need to move this real quick. So a direct sale versus pre-packaged. The direct sale is a product weighed at the time of sale. Items sold from bulk, and consumer may select the product. So those are at your market, but they go hands-on with the item that they pick. And then a pre-packaged item would be anything that's product weighed, packaged, and displayed for sale. And they still, the consumer has the option to select that package of product. Let's see. So a direct sale does not require a label. It can be sold by weight, count, volume, or measure. If weighed, the scales must be compliant. We'll touch base on a compliant scale near the end of the presentation. And then prepackaged items that a label is required. Rochelle did an awesome job with the labeling requirements, understanding that labels do cost money, and a lot of time and effort and energy goes into those. We have a little bit of a component that we like to see in that label, or that's required as well. And then the package must contain the stated weight net quantity. Tare weight must be taken if sold by weight, and that we'll touch base on that again. So the tare weight just means the weight of any wrapper or any other vehicle, vessel, material, or anything that is weighed with, but not actual part of a commodity sold by weight. Thus, the tare weight may include, in this case of packaged commodity, a wrapper, container, packaging material, binding material, preservative, or the like. Or in the case of bulk commodity, a vehicle is a box, can, jar, or the like. Net weight means the net weight of the commodity. That is the weight of the commodity exclusive of any wrapper or any other material or thing weighed or packaged with such commodity, then excluding the vehicle or vessel containing the commodity. So net weight is the difference between the gross weight and the tare weight. That's a lot of words there to read. Glad the slideshow will be available to you at the end. It's quoting one of the code sections, which are all accessible to you now at 3.2-5622, and it's how certain commodities are to be sold. An easier view is to the handbook, when you come down to farmers market, does spell out what different fruits and vegetables, how they can be sold, whether it's by weight, count, head, or bunch, a dry measure, any size, or a dry measure of 1 dry quart or larger. I would encourage you to understand the products that you're selling. Some things can be sold by dry measure or count, which would not require the added expense to your operation of a scale. So all this information can be made available to you when you know what you're going to be showcasing at your sale. Again, just it's continued there so that you can understand which, and it goes into some good detail as far as melons. Like a watermelon can be sold by each until cut, then it's sold by weight. So different things like that you can be made aware of. Labeling, like I said, as earlier, labelings are kind of a big ticket item for everyone involved. Ours goes into the same requirements, and we follow the uniform regulation for packaging and labeling as adopted by the National Conference on Weights and Measures and published in our NIST Handbook 130. So uniform laws and regulations. And then all of the additional labeling requirements by FDA that Rochelle was mentioning earlier. So just for identity, it's basically it appears on the principal display panel, where the PDP, as it could be referred to, as a general parallel to the base of the package. The PDP is part of, or those parts are labeled that is or are so designed as to most likely be displayed, presented, shown, or examined under normal and customary conditions of display and purchase. So in addition to those other requirements, is that it's specified and required by federal or state regulation, and the common or usual name, the generic name, or other appropriate description, including a statement of function. Quantity, it again has a PDP or a principal display panel, and it's required parallel, typically base. You don't want it to cover up what you're trying to show from inside of the package, but it's predominantly displayed in English. Multilingual information is permitted. It's both international and customary units. And it says only approved words, symbols, abbreviations for those in a singular form. And it does not appear in conjunction with an improper qualifying phrase. So as we look at as declaration of responsibility, and that's basically the product, where it's from. So it's displayed on a package, kept, offered, or exposed for sale or sold at a location other than where packed. Includes the name and address of the manufacturer, the packer, or the distributor. Uses the actual corporate name, or when not incorporated, the name under which the business is conducted. All address, component, city, state, or country and zip code. And then make sure I don't miss anything on there. If the responsible party is not the manufacturer, then includes the party's connection with the package, i.e. manufactured for or packed by or distributed by. And scales. The scale, I said probably one of our biggest questions we get when we enter the farmers market space, and that's whether they have to have a scale or not. And it comes down to the types of products that you're selling, but then actually an approved scale. And that's one that will be marked with a legal for trade designation. Or not. We found a lot of times that there's a lot of good quality scales that are in the market today, but they have not gone through the NTEP process, which is the National Type Evaluation Program, and that just determines its suitability for commercial trade. So that there is some older scales out there, and that's any commercial scale manufactured after January 1, 1986 must be labeled Class 3 if it is a commercial quality. It will have identification plates with serial numbers, the manufacturer name, model number, maximum capacity, number of measurement divisions, and the size of the smallest measurement. So pay attention if you're selling light items. versus heavy items, understanding that the scale that you are selecting is suitable for your needs. The good thing is typically scales will be marked with not legal for trade if they are not on the NIST approved or gone through the INTEPT program. So typically your baby scales, bathroom scales, restaurant portion scales, postal scales, and kitchen scales are not legal for trade most cases. They're used for reference weights. So all of our specifications and tolerance for weighing comes from our handbook 44, and that's what this spells out here and through the code section 3.2-5620. And that's how we perform our tests and make sure that the scale is within compliance. This is a general code at 8.1 in handbook 44, and that just basically says that the specifications, tolerances, other technical requirements that are applied to commercial weighing measuring equipment, and then suitability of equipment. And that's where it just tells you to make sure that the equipment shall be suitable for the service in which it is used with respect to the elements of its design. Hanging scales versus platform scales, make sure the scale is suitable for your need. Identification is something most important for the inspector when they arrive to look at your scale, that all the components required, and they're down under letter E, and that's the INTEPT certificate of conformance number or a corresponding CC addendum number, and then all the name, initials, trademarks, manufacturers, the class 3 designation. That's what we'll use to determine if it is legal for trade and used in its intended use. Position of equipment, that's a device or system equipped with primarily indicating element and used in direct sales, except for prescription sales, shall be positioned so that its indicate may be accurately read and the weighing or measuring operation may be observed from some reasonable customer and operator position. That's just something to be mindful of. The people that you will encounter will want to see what they are buying and what its weight is before you determine a price point for their weighed item. So it's good that when you buy a scale with a customer display that's facing the customer, or you orient your scale if it only has a singular display so that it can be viewed by the customer. It allows them to say that whether or not they want the selected items, or gives them the choice so that they understand the price per pound or the weighing operation. As we said about scales, it's a class 3, all commercial weighing, not otherwise specified grain test scales, retail precious metals and semi-precious gem weighing or grain hopper scales, animal scales, postal scales, vehicle onboard weighing systems with a capacity of less than or equal to 30,000 pounds, and scales used to determine laundry charges. So that's where class 3 fits in the majority of this space. You can purchase your scales from a retail service agent. They can place the scale into service, or if it's purchased by you through the internet or whichever means you choose, you can contact Office of Weights and Measures to have your scale inspected and tested for accuracy. And as Kim was saying, you can check with your farmers market. Some of them have already have meeting dates in place. And it's good to know, and I think it's increased this year as many markets have reached out to our office to have inspectors on site and answer questions and work with the markets. The one that we're typically a Monday through Friday operation, but with advance notice, we can schedule evening meetings or even Saturday meetings, and we're glad to do that. As Kim was mentioning, contact the office, the number's there, or you can do our office inbox at owm@vdacs.virginia.gov. And then there again is phone number and email for the office. So again, thanks to Rochelle. She took care of the labeling piece for us all. Kind of a rinse, wash, repeat for the majority of that. But if you have questions, definitely reach out.
Thank you, Anthony. I do have a couple of questions in the chat for you.
Okay.
One of them is a vendor is selling frozen poultry under the Virginia exemption, the poultry exemption law, and their labels are missing weights and descriptions. Are they exempt from labeling requirements?
I would have to research that, but my initial is no. I think the labeling requirement still would apply for the consumer to be able to make that purchase.
Okay, that's what we had been told in previous years. So I think so we will go with that. But you'll verify that for us and let me know, and we'll put that out there. I have two other questions. How does all of this apply for packaging herbs? I'm assuming we're talking about dried herbs here.
Dried herbs, how, I guess the follow-up question would be, how are they being sold? Are because, by the bunch, or I guess what I would have to review the method of sale with the individual item.
Okay. And we have somebody that wants to know if I know you talked about different types of scales that are out there. Can you suggest for us, and I know, and I just can't remember what it is, but somebody's asked if you can suggest the good scales to buy, because I know there's some scales on Amazon that are not the ones that we want to use. And then there are some that we've been told are the good scales to buy. So what are approved scales to buy? Or what is it? What is that designation that they have to be on the scales?
As long as we do not recommend manufacturers. I would agree with you that there is good and bad out there. The only recommendation that I would give, or any of my office would give, is that it's legal for trade. I think if you have concern, the better avenue would be to contact some of your fellow markets and the staff, that they see what experiences they've had with certain scales, as long as it fits with the products that you're selling. We've just never taken the stance on recommending a model or manufacturer name of scale. And then we do and can make available the list of retail service agents that are within the Commonwealth that go through our our service agent and technician training that allows them to be service agents for the Commonwealth. So those are good avenues for references as well, because they're the ones that actually do the installation and service and repair of the scales.
Okay. And are they the ones that also come out and do the inspection?
The inspectors will do the inspection. The service agencies handle any calibration or repairs.
Okay. So if somebody wants to have a weights and measures inspector come out and do a vendor kickoff meeting, or come to market one day before market starts and inspect all their scales, they can just send an email to owm@vdacs.virginia.gov and schedule that. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And the last question we have here in the chat is, does Weights and Measures ever see labeling requirements for personal care products sold at markets? I think that falls under Rochelle, but
yes.
Does that? Yeah.
I've not been exposed to that, but it would be something that I would check with her first to make sure.
Okay. Totally throwing her under the bus because I know she's here, but I think that falls under
What
those
was
people.
the question?
Labeling requirements for personal care products sold at markets.
Oh, personal care, like lotion and things. It actually does not fall to us because they're not for human consumption, but I have some handouts and guidance from FDA that we can share. So we don't permit cosmetics because they're not food, but we have information we can share with them.
Okay. And you'll send that.
I would say if they're
we'll...
to regulate size and net quantity does fall into us. We've had some dealings with that. If you're selling an 8-ounce bottle of lotion and someone's concerned that it's not actually 8 ounces, then yes, from a quantities perspective, it does fall into us. But when it comes to the labeling, maybe Rochelle's information would be beneficial.
Okay. So again, under both, it sounds like. So let me put that answer in the chat. Does fall under weights and measures. All right. And then let's see, there was one other question I thought here. Oh, all right. Can you remind us of the consequences of not using an approved scale?
If discovered through weights, it would be condemned and not be allowed to use. So the state, the weights and measures law is very clear. It's an NTEP state. So we're illegal for trade. Scales are to be used. If we show up, it's not a situation to where we allow it until you get one or anything. It's condemned and placed out of service immediately.
Okay. And then are they confiscated or?
Not confiscated by us, but they do face, I guess, penalty if, we were to re-advise, and it would be something if they're under a sanctioned market, not just a roadside stand or something like
Right.
that, we would let the market owner know that they were, operating outside of
Right.
that.
And our market managers appreciate that. I know I see your weights and measures folks at a lot of our bigger markets just shopping and noticing if scales don't have valid stickers on them. We had one more scale question here. Can you fail a scale, and then what happens? And can they be calibrated? So I think you just answered the fail piece. They're condemned,
Yeah,
right?
the scale can be failed, and there's a tolerance that we use through the handbook, through the testing procedures, and it depends. I know that's a horrible answer to say it depends, but it's the quality of the scale. In some cases, is it better to pay a service technician to repair a scale, or are you more advantageous to replace the scale? It depends on the life expectancy. So that's why we do not get involved typically in recommending scales and things like that, because that's just not the space that we're in.
Okay.
Where they're testing the scale for consumer protection. But again, we can get you locality based service agent information to where you could speak to actual trade professional on repairs and calibrations, and they would be able to provide the guidance on whether repair or replacement.
Okay. Perfect. That sounds great. Have there been any updates to the weights and measures requirements and labeling and your regs this year?
No.
Okay, because I think we have that document and we continue to put it out for you. Just wanted to make sure it was still the same. We have an anonymous individual, Anthony, that has asked, who do we contact if we feel there are vendors that are out of compliance with a market that we are at? So this sounds like it might be a vendor, and there are other vendors at the market that are out of compliance. Who do they contact?
That same email or phone number. That's also our what we would call our consumer complaint line. And what we would do is we would take all the information available that they can provide, and then we would notify a district inspector, and they would investigate it.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, totally. That's the avenue of contact for that as well. So if you feel that your neighboring vendor, or you understand or whatnot, and you feel that you just want questions answered, or you feel like you need to have someone looked into, we're here for consumer protection outside of consumer services. So
I appreciate that. I hear from vendors all the time that the vendors that are doing everything right, or trying to do everything right, and jumping through all the different hoops, and it's frustrating when they're at a market and somebody is not, or a farm stand, or whatever the case may be. So they like having the ability to be able to make sure it's an even playing field, so to speak. And then I'm sorry, I'm going to ask again because I wasn't clear on your answer regarding packaging dried herbs. Can you, if somebody has dried herbs, how does that apply for underweights and measures?
But I may have to get back with you on that one. That would be, I've never experienced that as far as dried herbs. So let me, I think for the sake of everyone, they may want an actual answer versus my opinion. So I'll do some research and send that to you, and then you can get that
I
out.
appreciate it.
I do think that's, I would have to make sure method of sale and then what labeling is happening with that, but I'll get back with you if that's okay.
Yes, I would appreciate that. And for all of you that are attending, any of the information that is being sent back to us that we're collecting that can't be answered now, we will provide all of this in a follow-up email that you're going to get in the next couple of weeks. It'll have links to all of the videos, all of the decks. Hopefully we'll have, it'll have links to like the flyers that Rochelle was going to provide us regarding beauty products, what Anthony sends us, any additional information that is mentioned here will be sent to you in one comprehensive link. And then we will also have it on our website. So don't be afraid that we have, that you've missed something. And we're going to do our best to get you all the answers. And we still have some questions in the Q&A for VDACS and VDH. So I appreciate y'all continuing to answer this. Anthony, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. You did a good job.
Thanks.
Thank you. We will be talking to you soon. I appreciate it. Thank you and welcome aboard. And then our final presenter today is Christina Banks. She is with the Virginia Department of Agriculture Consumer Services, and she is the Produce Safety Senior Specialist for VDACS Produce Safety Program. She is stepping in for her coworker, Eric Bungo, who I think if any of y'all are in produce, you know Christina and Eric. They are very helpful, and we appreciate you being here today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Christina.
Good morning, Kim. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And yes, to answer your question, 11 o'clock would be good. I think we're right
11
there.
o'clock. And you can see my screen.
I can see your screen. We're good. Thank you. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
and I think I've got my other coworkers, they might be on here today as well. And we just kind of at the last minute, Eric had another meeting to go
No
to.
worries.
So we are going to cover today, and we're going to jump right in. And I'm just going to share our updates about our program, and we're going to talk about exemptions, the ag water updates, and just some resources that we have to share with you guys to just help understand the requirements and hopefully help you guys feel supported and not overwhelmed to work through the produce safety rule.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I get a lot of questions about produce permits and all too. So thank you for covering all this today.
And the first thing I want to show you guys is our territory map, and we've updated it with phone numbers because we get that question a lot, like how do we get in contact with you guys, with us? And these are our direct work cell phone numbers. And the first one I'll just show you guys is like I'm the purple one. I'm located in Carroll County. We work in the field. We all have large territories, but we want to just ask you guys to reach out to us, the market managers as well, the farmers. You guys definitely reach out to us with questions. And the top territory, our northern territory, is Nicole, Selena's, and then Cynthia is out on the she gets out into the eastern shore. So again, you guys can reach out to us and ask us questions through phone calls or text. And we didn't have enough room to put our email on there, but you guys can most certainly reach out to us if you're in one of these territory or one of these counties. And then before we dive in, I just want to frame how the rule works into, how this works into our area. We have like the 6 major, I was reading and trying to tell you guys at the same time. So we have the 6 major areas. We have worker health and hygiene. We have ag water, biological soil amendments, domesticated and wild animals, equipment, tools, buildings, and sprouts. These are the core 6 areas of what FDA focuses on to reduce contamination of produce. And during this whole time when we're with you guys, our goal really is to educate the farmers while we regulate, like they're in this voluntary compliance. And we get this question a lot: does every farm need to be inspected in Virginia? Not necessarily, because every farm's not going to fall underneath a mandatory inspection. The coverage depends on certain factors like the produce type. There's a 3-year sale average and exemptions underneath the rule. So farms are covered on a certain criteria, like if they're growing the produce, if they're subject to those inspections. So even farms that are they may be voluntary exempt, so they can request an inspection at no cost, which can be helpful for the buyer and build confidence and readiness. So sprout inspections are conducted jointly with FDA. So that's one difference that we see a lot. And then just to point out, like this coverage chart we talk about, like that 3-year gross average, you can find that on our website as well. That's something that changes with inflation. So, and then that decision tree, let's see here, is right here. That decision tree is super helpful for you to go through. This chart is going to help you determine if you're covered or not. When we say covered, whether that means if you're going to be inspected. So when you work through that, you want to make sure you start at the top, and we encourage growers to use this tree. And then if you're not really sure if you are going to be covered, reach out for sure. But as you go through this, you'll ask those questions to yourself, do I pack, hold the harvest, the produce? That's the first question you go through, but you'll work through these questions and kind of help decide if you're covered produce. And this is also on our portal that we're going to see here in just a second. But We won't go through every one of them. And then I just want to point out that the FD&C Act, it points out like what the definition of food is, because we get that question, is like food something that maybe I feed to my animals. Sometimes people want to know like if the grain I'm feeding, but they want to just define like what the actual food is, the definition. And then some of our covered examples that we see, things are like tomatoes, leafy greens, berries, melons, peppers, cucumbers are many of the ones we see, but it surprises people a lot when we see things like herbs and lavender, edible flowers. We see those. Those are like an emerging produce that we see, and some nuts. They may fall underneath the produce safety rule. It just depends on how you handle them and, again, how much you grow of that commodity. And we've spoke a lot about labeling today. So this is something we see a lot of, and we get lots of questions. So if produce is sold in a packaged form, labeling requirements would apply underneath the Virginia Food and Drink Law. So that's going to generally include that common name of the product, the farm name, the address, the quantity statement, and then other labeling elements like the nutrition labeling is not necessarily needed, but that's going to be for health claims if they're made. And then we just heard a lot about the accurate, like the net weight, the quantity of those contents of weights and measures. That's going to be, you can refer to Anthony on that. But one thing I just want to point out, this is going to be if your produce leaves your farm. So if you're a farm stand and you're at your own personal farm, then that rule is not going to apply, because this is at the markets. And then for signage requirements, this is for qualified exempt farms especially. So signage can be a part of the compliance, and customers need to know where the produce comes from. So this can be simply, a sign like that you see in these pictures, like this little stand right there. It could be even like the point of sale as far as like the internet purchase. It shows like the picture. It could even be in an invoice. It just has to show somewhere of like a placard or, a document delivered with it. It's just got to say where it comes from, like the name of it. And this is for like the open bulk sales. And then we always like to show like our upcoming classes. And unfortunately, this is today, 1 to 5, and we're all pretty booked today, and it would be short notice, but we have a Produce Safety Alliance class that we would like do with Virginia Tech, and it's actually that they put it on. And this is actually the one class that is required if you are a farm that is inspected. So when we say covered, that's an inspected farm. So for farms that are not inspected and required, or not, they are not required, to take this class. But unfortunately, like this is today, and I don't know that they have another one scheduled right now coming up, but they typically have, these 3 or 4 times throughout the year. But we just want to share that this is the PSA training class. If you've heard of it, some of you guys have already gotten this class, but you'll get a PSA. That means the Produce Safety Alliance certificate for this class. And then our pre-harvest ag water regulations, you may have heard about these. They were changing. This is one of the biggest updates. FDA revised the subpart E. They were moving away from relying mainly on water testing numbers and towards a system-based agriculture assessment. So in simple terms, they really just want you to know your water source. They want you to know your risk, and they want you to know your practices. And they just want you to know how you can reduce contamination. And it just gives the growers more flexibility, but also more responsibility. So they put that responsibility on the grower, like to know where your water comes from. And then these dates are based on business size. The larger operations, they had to comply first. So then the small businesses, and then the very small businesses. So grace periods were put into place, but currently for the large farms, they're under compliance. As right now, like 4/7/2026, we'll be out inspecting the large farms and asking them for that pre-harvest ag water assessment. And then this year, the small farms, they will be having that grace period until next year of the April of the 2027. I can't see that part of I'm going to move my window. I really apologize. Okay, 2027. And then the farms with the very small, they'll also have that grace period. It'll trickle down. So we will move on to the post-harvest. that post-harvest water requirement did not substantially change. And that includes water like wash tanks, cooling water, flumes, hand washing, sanitation. And January 2026, all farms had to come into compliance with that. And that water requirement is all of that is under enforcement now. So then what's the difference between pre-harvest and post-harvest when we talk about it? So pre-harvest water is water that's used while the crop is growing, like irrigation sprays and fertigation, frost protection, and similar uses. While post-harvest water is used after harvest, also during harvest, like washing produce, cooling, dump tanks, hand washing, and cleaning. And then the risk profile can be different depending on how directly the water contacts the edible produce. And then we'd like to show some helpful resources. Our favorite resources that we like to share is that top one from Cornell Produce, the Safety Alliance. That one right there is also got the template to the right, that PSA record template for water. So if you have a smartphone, definitely grab a picture of that one, because that one right there, if you are not even under the rule and you are just have maybe a small or new farm, that one has those templates that if you've ever seen them out there, if you're starting a new program or new farm, like a food safety program, this one is like the golden ticket that we actually take out as inspectors. We take those forms and give them to you guys, but they are like those sheets that you're going to have the templates. They're going to have your sanitation templates. They're going to have your all of the logs for water, worker training. But any log that people used to pay for, I laugh about this now, but people used to pay for back in the day, and you had to pay $4,000 or $5,000 to get a consultant. But those logs are just like the golden ticket. So enough about those. The rest of them, I think we have these are all the fact sheets about the water and how that's all changed. So if you got anything from that one, just to get those logs. And then water testing is definitely still a big part of what we're doing. You know, we don't want to let you guys try to figure this out alone. It's already out here. Like Virginia Tech is doing an amazing job giving you information. They're saying, you know, they're going to be helping you out on the left side. They've already said, you know, here's what we're doing and here's how to test the water. And then we have water testing labs that are already approved on our website. And then on the right hand side, if you again are wanting to test your water, it's not required, but some people want to know what their count of coliform or even E. coli is. The VDACS lab is $21 a sample if you want to use our labs. So that's what those flyers are. And our additional program updates, we're excited to share with you about the certificate of inspection will be issued after each inspection is completed. If you have heard about this, there's no costs or no fees for this. It's valid for 15 months. All farms are regardless of size. So that is our newest update. So small farms, so if you're listening to this right now and you're a farmer, you're eligible to get this inspection and you're eligible to get a certificate. So QE and micro farms can opt into this. And that's our biggest new update this year. Then you're able to use this certificate. Maybe market managers are saying you need to be inspected of some sort. This may be that way into the markets be inspected. And then the other thing is we have the portal through the certificate. We're no longer calling that a certificate for registration. So in the past, if you've been registering through our portal and you had to get that approval of exemption or approval of registration, we're not calling them certificates anymore. Now it's just going to be an approval because we didn't want that mix up of one was going to be an certificate. So that, just remember that's different. And then you're going to have to remember that if you're going to file for an exemption in our portal, you have to know also we say you're doing it on, that you're filing yourself, but you're also going to have to eventually, say, it says must show proof, but know that you are filing for an exemption, meaning that there's other ways that the government eventually finds out. I say finds out, but they know what's happening out there. That's just, I guess, just I'll leave it at that. I'll just say, and then you can always opt out of that exemption eligibility. Just remember that and request an inspection. Okay, I think that's how I said that. Oops, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. And then we are excited that we have this new farm to school pathway to development. Our one inspector, Nicole Salinas, she's been working really closely with that. So if you want some more information, you can reach out to her, and ask her questions about that. But it's this farm to school pathways. It's with Virginia Tech and the Department of Education. And there's more to come in the future. So stay tuned about that. And again, I said, reach out to Nicole to ask her more questions because it's just in development about that. And then, so there's a picture of what our certificate of inspection looks like to the right. And that's what I was talking about. Like if you're interested in getting that certificate, that's what it would look like. And it would be for, good for 15 months. And I have heard this, that some people who are growing produce are selling to Department of Health, and they said that this has really helped them, get that approved food source. So that is one thing I've seen with our inspection. And then to the left, this is our report. And then not all observations are noted as violations. Sometimes we just do discussion items. Sometimes, that's what we just discuss, like maybe what we've seen. So there's a spot on our report that we just discuss items that maybe are just a spot for future correction. And that's sometimes it's a nice to see because it gives you an opportunity to work on something. But then there's going to be items on there that are major observations. So they'll be marked as violations. But there are times, again, that it's just discussion. So I think that's a nice spot with managers where they can have room for improvement. And I believe that we did talk about what's the difference between the gap inspection. So did we talk about that, Kim? I apologize if
I was answering questions. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I don't specifically remember you talking about gap yet.
I apologize, guys, because we've had a busy morning. So this is a very common question we get about, like, what's the difference between a produce safety inspection and regulatory gap inspection. So gap audits are voluntary and buyer driven. So that's like the USDA gap inspection that you might hear about. They involve fees and they're specifically market requirement. Like your buyer might ask for that. They're both very valuable, but they both serve a different purpose. Then the produce safety inspection is underneath of the FSMA, like the Food Safety Modernization Act. And that's going to be something either you're in or out unless you do that voluntary, like you opt in to get that certificate. So that would be underneath, again, the Food Safety Modernization Act is underneath of the FDA. And that's one of the biggest difference. And then there's a document that's been created, and that's where the link is. And it's, you can look at that, and that was created through AFTO, where you can see it's very detailed how you can look at those differences. And then this was where our portal, if you were on like last year, if you've heard about us talk about the portal, this is our grower registration portal. And this is where you can register for the exemption. And then, you can also manage some of your records, and you can change your address. Like say, maybe you say, okay, I changed my address. I need to add a different commodity. And then you can also work through that exemption flowchart that I went and talked to you about. And then this is where you would also apply for the QE or the exemption. So that's where that portal is. And that website's right there at the bottom. And this still, again, talks about our registration portal, just saying that they do expire. So they don't expire like from like, say, January to December. The way they would work is if you applied for it in April of 2026, it would expire in April of 2027. So whenever you would apply, it rolls from 1 year to 1 year. And then you'll get our email reminder typically. And after the email reminder, we'll usually get a reminder from one of us, one of the inspectors in that area. It says, hey, can you reapply or something like that. So the other thing that's nice is you can usually get opted into the Virginia Grown program. So if you want more information about that, we can talk to you about that too. We're still doing a lot of education and outreach. This is a picture of our team. There's Eric. He's our program supervisor to the top. I'm right here to the top right. Cynthia is the Eastern Shore, one on the Eastern Shore, if you guys have seen her out in the field. And then Nicole is down here on the bottom right. So again, remember, you can email us or give us a call. Our information is also on our website, but please, as your markets are ramping up, market managers, let us come out. We can come out and talk to you guys, give you guys information. The farmers, we can do on some stuff, sorry, but educational visits. We would definitely love to come out and see your farms, just to see if you might be ready for an inspection. So remember that. And I just want to thank you guys for your time today. And we know that regulations can be very complicated, but our goal is to be a resource and a partner for Virginia agriculture. And if you just have questions, again, reach out to our produce team. And then we appreciate that you guys provide high quality produce. So if you have any questions, our team is here to help, like I think in some of the chat, and I'm also, if I can answer questions today, I will do my best.
Awesome. Thank you. You do have a question in the chat. How often would a water test inspection be required?
So depends if you are inspected farm. So if we are inspecting you, then that would be the covered farm. So if we are coming to see you and you are underneath of the produce safety rule, so that would be question A, like if you're under the produce safety rule, then we would only be looking at the water test for the post-harvest water. That's going to be like your hand washing water or water that you use to wash your produce or wash your contact surfaces. And the first time we came and saw you, so say it was the very first time we ever saw you, if it's a like well water, not municipal water, then it would be 4 times the first year. And after that, it would be just once a year. So I know that's why I said it's a loaded question. It's always like, it depends. But more than like the farms that we are inspecting now and the ones that I see like out here in Southwest Virginia, if I can help you there, give you a scenario. I see them, and for post-harvest, most of them we were having to see it's 1 sample a year for wells. Like I'm just saying for wells because most of the farms out here do not have a municipal water supply.
Right.
But again, that's after I've seen them, like, the first initial visit.
Right.
So pre-harvest, we don't require any testing for pre-harvest water.
Okay. Is it best if they reach out to you guys in produce safety?
Yes, directly, because that's, I think the thing is sometimes I get like the wrong information, or I can go back to that slide. Let me just go back to that slide and then you guys can, here we go. You guys can just reach out with any questions that you have. We will be more than happy to come out and do visits or just answer any questions you have.
All right. I'm dropping this in the chat where the question was raised. I'm not sure which area they fall under. Thank you. I appreciate it. I always love the answer depends. That my follow-up. Okay, who did they call?
Because it's like it's kind of like choose your own adventure.
Perfect. I think that's the only question that I have for water and produce. I've got some pork rind questions here, but I think those are the ones that I have for you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being with us today. As always, I so appreciate working with you. And if you would make sure that I get your slide deck, and if all the presenters would make sure that I get your slide decks, if I haven't gotten those yet, that would be wonderful. So I can make sure that I get those out. Several of you are asking, can you please get them sooner than 2 weeks? We're doing our best to get all of this as soon as the videos are made available to us. We will do the appropriate editing, which is our pre-summit chatter, and get everything posted, but I cannot say that they will be up this afternoon. But I appreciate your enthusiasm and optimism that we're that good. We will do our best to get them as soon as possible. They will be, all videos and information will be on the FAFMA Farmers Market Food Safety website. We also will be in Farmers Market University. If you need a certificate, you can take the quiz, watch it through, watch the webinars at your own leisure and take the quiz. And they also will be, if you just need information and know that Whitney said something that you just need to go back and reference, you can watch it on YouTube, and they will be posted shortly. This is day one. We have 2 more days of this. And tomorrow we've had a little bit of a change in the schedule. So tomorrow we'll be doing CBD hemp, pet food, we'll be doing fire safety, and from the state fire chief, and we'll be doing meat and poultry. And then Thursday we will have dairy and dairy services and presentation. We also will be hearing from alcohol beverage, ABC Alcohol Beverage and Control. They'll talk about if you want to have wine tastings or cider sold at your market, or do tastings, if you have somebody that wants to do boozy bundt cakes, and where tinctures and vanilla extract and kombucha and kefir water and all, as they ferment, become alcoholic beverages, where all of that falls and what you need to do to make sure that you're compliant in those areas. So if you are vendors or market managers that fall in those categories, make sure you tune in. And then we will have Virginia Cooperative Extension. They will talk about all of the resources that they have, the classes, as well as answer any of the questions, et cetera. They do a ton of free training. They also are the empirical labs that do a lot of your acidification testing. They'll walk through all of that with you, as well as everything else that they do. And so very worthwhile to hear all of the resources that are out there. I want to thank everyone for participating today. We will continue to answer the questions that are here. I see we have a pork rind question. I don't know whether that can be sold without a permit or not, but I know they can be sold at farmers markets. And we have a couple of other questions that we still are answering, and I'll make sure that I keep this open so that we can get those answered. We have one regarding temporary structures and enclosed tent for canning outside of the home during growing season. So that might be a Department of Health question. And then we have one regarding a vendor who sells frozen chicken from her own farm and also sells beef from another farmer. So we have a couple of questions left that we're going to get to while we have the folks here. Jessica, yes, you raised your hand.
Yes, regarding that, how are temporary structures treated? I'm not sure if that's a question for VDH, because this is talking about outside of someone's home during growing season. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that's for us. We would handle that question if they were talking about setting up at a farmer's market as a
Right.
PFE vendor. Yeah.
What about, who does that fall under? Does that fall under produce, or does it fall under, who in VDACS does that fall under?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I can't answer
Okay.
that question.
Okay. I was hoping one of the VDACS folks would jump in and say, oh, I will take a swing at that. All right. Well, we will work on getting that information for you as to how temporary structures are treated regarding production and who oversees that if they are on your home property. So we're going to have to get that, and let me see. Okay, we will research that.
Yeah, Kim, if they can add what they're trying to do, like what are they canning and are they trying to do that exempt or under permit, that would help.
Okay, so Tyler, if you would put that information in the chat, and then we will get you the question. As you can see, everybody that's participating, we have all of the experts here on the call, and it's just everything is an exception. It seems like everybody we don't have all the answers. We're working to find them though. What about the vendor that sells frozen chicken from their farm? Can they also sell frozen beef from another farmer? Andrea, I think you're going to need to expand on that question also. Regarding, are you asking if the market manager will allow you to sell it, if VDACS will allow you to sell it, and what you need to be looking out for regarding the way it's processed? What exactly are you asking? Can you expand on that a little bit? And then the last question for you guys, Patricia Harris has asked about a vendor that wants to bundle beef and vegetables as a stew bundle. Can that be done? And how is that permitted? Or is it permitted?
Can you
Is that a
repeat the
VDAC?
question, Kim?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. The question is, we have a beef farmer at a farmer's market, and he wants to bundle beef and vegetables and create a stew bundle. How would this be permitted, or would it be permitted?
Um,
Should it be
let's
bundled separately?
let's tag that on to the things we need to follow up on because I'd want OMPS's take as well.
Okay. All right. We've got that. And then let me see. Do y'all have, I know I've asked you this question before too, but maybe something new has popped up. Do you have any kind of a list of commercial kitchens? No?
We do not at VDACS, and I'm not sure Winnie and Jess can answer. I don't think they
We do
have that
not.
either. Like, there's
No.
not like a directory. The best is to reach out to your local health department or your
Yeah.
local VDACS office, and we can try to tell you some people we're aware of, but there's not a directory that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I've searched high and low also looking for that
Yeah.
magical directory, and I just end up Googling. I mean, there's not many
Mhm.
many that are here. Okay, let's see. So can we have a seafood boil created at the market? Do you mean doing the Mark Jolly, do you mean doing the seafood boil live at the market? Do you mean packaging it and selling it as a seafood boil? Tell me more about what you're looking for regarding the seafood boil.
If they're going to be cooking it at the market, I think they would need a VDH permit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he says live. So yes, okay. So yeah, you fall under VDH, you would need a TFE, right? Oh, David McLeish says there's a new commercial kitchen opening up in Abington. So that's great news. We love when we have new ones coming into the market. Thanks, David, for sharing that. All right, so we've got another chicken question. We always seem to have a lot of chicken questions. If VDEX will allow a chicken vendor to sell, okay, oh, this is going back to the chicken and beef question. Okay, will you allow a chicken vendor to sell their neighbor's beef? Both the chicken and the beef farmers are vendors at another market. One wants to sell at our market, but the other cannot attend and wants to sell the chicken and wants to let the chicken farmer sell his beef. I see. All right, so you've got a chicken farmer that is permitted and selling in a market, and you've got a permitted beef vendor, and the chicken farmer wants to know if they can sell that other farmer's beef for them since they can't attend the market in person. I think you've got to be selling your own product, right? Face to face at a farmer's market. The farmer has to be there face to face to sell it. So unless you're buying it wholesale.
Could you repeat it, Kim? I'm answering
Okay.
questions at the same time.
I know, I was doing the same. Christina caught me off guard as I was sitting answering a question, but I hadn't heard the word gap, so I was pretty confident in that answer. Okay, so we've got two vendors. One that is at a farmer's market, a poultry vendor selling their chicken. They have a neighbor who also is approved to sell beef, but cannot attend in person. The chicken vendor wants to know, can she sell her neighbor's beef for him?
That may
And
also be an OMPS question, but we'll follow up. Just keep it on our list for a follow-up.
okay. Because I'm thinking with the face-to-face rule, they'd have to be buying it wholesale and reselling it, right? They couldn't just take their neighbor's stuff and sell it themselves.
Right. I don't know how their like meat handler permits address that because it's not one of our own permits that we can speak to.
All right. VDEX will follow up. We'll add that to the list. And let me see. This is more of the chicken vendor. Okay. I think that is it. Any last questions while we have everybody here before I let them go? Oh, the pork rinds. Did we need to follow up on that? Are pork rinds, do they need to be permitted?
OMPS question.
Okay. Well, and that's not how you spell the word question. Question. Okay. I think that is, we had a question about a farm stand on wheels. I don't see, Pam, I don't see your question. You want to drop it in the Q&A again and we'll get it. We'll come back to it. or expand. Okay. And then we have somebody that wants to know if they can cook Indian breakfast if they have a TFE. So yeah, if you're approved by the market. We have somebody that wants to know if they need to operate from a commercial kitchen to apply for a TFE.
No, with TFEs, the food is typically prepared on site.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
They'd have to have everything, the hand washing, 3-tub setup, overhead protection, all the good stuff. And if they would like us to put them in touch with their local health department, they can just email the food safety at vdh.virginia.gov.
Okay. And then the farm stand question is somebody wants to know if they have a farm stand on farm on their property and it's on wheels just to move it around the property. Who would that fall under?
It's not VDH.
Is that VDACS? I guess it depends on what you're selling too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends what they're doing with that farm stand. So if they can send us more details, we can follow up.
Yeah, that would be great because I don't think it's necessarily about the farm stand being on wheels, et cetera. It's what are you selling
Yeah, I would
at
say
the
if
farm
it's
stand?
produce, like are they selling produce, retail
Yeah.
food? Like, yeah, what are they selling?
Like doing bakery, et cetera. So, all right, so drop that into baked goods, herbs, produce, all the above.
So it'd be a mixed facility. They're selling again, mixed facility, it'd be produce and food safety.
Yeah. Yeah, so you would fall under both produce and food safety at VDAC. So you would need to reach out to Christina's department at food safety and reach out to food safety at vdacs.virginia.gov. And they can walk you through that process. And if any of y'all are confused after this, because I know everybody has picked up and memorized every single thing we've said, feel free to reach out to me and I can direct you to people also when you've had a chance to sit and think about it. And you come up with a question, let me know and we'll send it over to get answered. So let me know. And then we have a follow-up to the neighbors beef question also in regard to, in addition to the legislative or legal components of selling somebody else's beef, which falls under the Office of Meat, OMPS, but you also need to check with your market manager because you're now going to be selling 2 separate vendors in one booth. In a lot of markets, they have very specific policies for that. So you would need to not only check with your state regulatory agency, which would be, where the poultry exemption and the meat processing is, but you also would need to check with your market manager to make sure that they allow that. Herbs would be under produce safety. And back to your question on the stand on wheels and as well as your produce would be under produce safety. And then your baked goods would be under VDACS. Let's see. So we have another question coming in. And so thank you for those of you that have got to go do farm chores, thank you for participating. I appreciate it. For those of you that have additional questions, please feel free to stay on and we will answer them. Is a farm stand considered consignment?
Depends what they're doing. Consignment is like the owner of the products giving their goods to someone else to sell on their behalf. So if you have a farm stand selling your own products, no, that's not consignment. But if you're selling someone else's product, it could be, and it may not be allowed depending on whether you're permitted or not. So more needed on that.
Okay, perfect. All right. And I think that we have captured all of the questions that are in both the chat and the Q&A. Any last thoughts from anybody? Nope, I don't see any last questions coming in. So I am going to say thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it. Thank you to Department of Health. Thank you to Department of Agriculture for being with us today and all of the folks that you have, not only presenting from all of the different departments, but also for jumping on and answering all the questions. Boy, it takes some skills. I feel like I've put my degrees to use today trying to answer all of these. Farmers market rules vary from market to market and county to county. So you need to check with your local market, and depending on where it is, then you also need to check with that municipality regarding if you need a peddler's permit. You need to check with Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, et cetera, to make sure that you are all your products are good to go. So you need to work with your market manager specifically for that market, because each market, depending on what county you're in, varies. Their rules vary. If you have okay, we have another TFE question. Let's see. I have a home food I have a home food processing certification. Can I apply for a TFE without a commercial license and cook on site at a farmer's market live food? They want to know, can they get a TFE to cook live at a market without a license?
They'd have to apply for a TFE permit,
Yeah.
to cook.
Yeah, you'd have to meet all the requirements for a TFE, and you have to apply for that. Do you apply for that every year?
It depends. The way that our TFE policy is written is the local health department can issue a permit good for 12 months. I can tell you that most local health departments only issue a 12-month permit for low risk foods like kettle corn and lemonade, things like that. So it's going to be dependent on where they're operating. They're going to want to reach out to the local health departments for those markets that have jurisdiction.
And do you need to be, in order to get a TFE, do you need to have a commercial kitchen to be approved for your TFE?
No.
Okay, perfect. Somebody asked a question about selling live plants via reseller location. Nursery Products is not able to be with us. They said their rules have not changed. They're at another conference this week. And so we have the presentation and their slide deck up on our website that has that information in it from last year regarding what the situation is regarding needing a permit from nursery services, et cetera. So Walter, if you want to check that out, and if you have any other questions, let me know and I'll connect you directly with them. Okay. Any last questions? I keep asking and then more pop up. Thank you all for everybody that has said this has been so helpful. I appreciate it. Okay. So back to the new laws. Of course, I knew this was coming. So we have somebody that's on the North Carolina line, and they have longtime customers in North Carolina. They want to know if they can deliver under the new law to their home in North Carolina.
The across state lines has not changed in the law, so you cannot sell unpermitted products across state lines.
Okay.
North Carolina, I think they have some kind of, their cottage law is different than ours, but for ours, it says you cannot take those across state lines.
And then I have a question for produce safety. I'm sorry, I misunderstood one of the questions that we were given. The question regarding live products actually was referring to produce that's in soil. So let me go back and see if I can find that question. Can a vendor sell live produce, plants, herbs, etc., in soil at a farmer's market?
So I'm thinking like live, like they're going to intent to eat. That'll be the question. So if it would like we do have some operations that we inspect that are large operations, and then the final intent would be to sell that herb, or I'm just thinking herb, or sell that product as an intent to eat. Like sometimes the roots are attached, so I don't know what they want to sell that product for. I'm just going to use an example, like they're selling basil and a potted plant, but they're selling it as basil as a culinary herb in a pot. Or maybe another one might be a microgreen and a clamshell with the root attached. They call it a live, like a live microgreen. So if that is what the item is, then that would be under produce safety. But if they're selling nursery plants, then that would not be under us. Does that help
Okay.
the answer? So it depends on the intended end use.
I gotcha. Walter, did that answer your question? So if they're selling a tomato plant for you to plant in the garden, then
Yeah.
that's, that's under nursery services. If you're selling microgreens or a basil plant that you're going to use for culinary purposes, you're going to bring in the house and just use it for culinary purposes, then it falls under produce safety. Okay. So back to the question about the new cottage laws. So the product is being purchased at a Virginia market, but the customer lives in North Carolina and they're taking it into North Carolina. They're buying it in Virginia for their home, which is in another state.
That's fine because the sale took place in Virginia. They cannot be sold across state lines.
Okay. But the vendor cannot deliver it across state lines, or can they?
No.
So the customer can come to Virginia, buy it, and take it themselves, but the vendor can't take the sale and then deliver it across state lines.
Correct. And if we get any other information on that, we'll update it in our FAQ. We have updates to put in there for several of the specific questions to the new language.
Okay. Has that been signed into law? Has the governor signed that?
Yes, I believe it was signed on the 13th of this month.
Okay. Last time I had checked, I hadn't seen it as one of the bills, so that's good. Let's see. I think I saw another question regarding blended teas.
I answered that one. They were asking what they need to resale, and if they're
Thank you.
reselling or wholesaling, they need a permit.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And let's see. Okay, it looks like you have answered a lot of these. Okay, I think that it looks like we have answered the majority of, if not all of these questions, or we've got them in the queue to be answered as a follow-up. So last chance, any last questions while I have these wonderful folks providing their time today to be here to answer your questions. Any last questions for anybody? Or did I miss anything? All right. Well, I think that we've captured everything. So I am going to say thank you so much. This has been wonderful. You will, if you signed up to take tomorrow and Thursday, you will get a link. And though it is the same link, so it should be good. But I appreciate it. Again, certificates will, when you log in, you have a unique, when you sign up, all right, let me restart. When you sign up and when you register, you're given a unique link that is unique to you individually. And so we track that individual link. If you have more than one person sitting in the office with you, Amy Lou with Crunch On, I know in the past you've had a food safety summit party in your office. So if you guys, if you're in a situation where you've got multiple people that are watching at the same time, you need to let us know, because we only have the ability to track per registration. But we are tracking you. If you log in, we can track exactly who is here and how long you've been here, et cetera. So thank you again for being here. And if you have anything that comes to mind between now and tomorrow, feel free to email me. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. And I appreciate y'all being here. Rochelle, I don't know what I'm going to do without all your people answering questions tomorrow. I might have a heart attack trying to stay on top of all this tomorrow. But anyway,
you're doing great. And just anything that can't be answered, just follow up with us. We have a program meeting tomorrow, so a lot of us are not available.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. All right. So for everybody that has participated today, thank you so much. Stephanie, if you don't have a question, I appreciate your attendance, as I appreciate everybody else. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for today. And I will see you all bright and early at 9 a.m. tomorrow for those of you that will be attending. Thank you and take care.